all of our Faith Builders classes, but we kind of do them piecemeal throughout the year. So we've just kind of been doing it annually. If there's anything that you would add, anything that you said, this is kind of weird when I went to this church, or I had this question, or you use this acronym all the time, this is the time to ask it. This is the time to, especially leadership, so Rich, Dan, Eric, if there's something that you think like, we don't have a way of informing people about this, this can, again, kind of be the kitchen junk drawer for a number of items that we don't normally get to. We don't normally have a whole Faith Builders class on the different acronyms in our church body, so this is, again, kind of good to do that. And if you have any just kind of random questions, this is not a real formal thing, but it is good to kind of review a number of these principles. As we jump in, just a little bit of history. So where did we come from? This is our sister church in Pooler, Georgia. That's Risen Savior. This church was started, was started in 2018. When I was called down here, originally we were going to be a multi-site. In other words, it was going to be one church, 2 locations. As time went on, it seemed more and more feasible just to have us do our separate things. And so this is what the church looked like when we first got it in summer of 2019. This is what it looked like. You can see the carpeting strips from where it was office space before. You can see the carpet on the pillars. We've just covered it up with some lovely plastic covers, so you wouldn't even know it, but it had kind of a 90s feel to it. Yeah, this is here. Yeah, lifted up the stage. It was at Calvary Chapel before this. But yeah, a lot of different elbow grease and a lot of effort put into making it look the way it looks now. This is just questions of where we've been, or just talking about where we've been. Any questions on that? Just history of the church? What we're doing right now. I'm going to hand this out. This isn't something that we use a whole lot, but it can be helpful. This is what's called a Vision Traction Organizer, or a VTO. All it is just kind of a document that says, hey, this is what we're doing, why we're doing it. It gives me just a little bit of kind of structure. It helps me know, okay, this is what we're going after this quarter, this is what we're going after this year, this is what we're not doing. Here we go. So it's kind of hard to if we're going to move forward, which way are we going? Are we all pulling in different directions? I may want to do a basket weaving small group, and someone else may want to preach the gospel. We may want to help the homeless. We may want to do all of these things. This sheet kind of just says, this is what we're all about. So if you look on the first side, it has organization name, core values, core focus, marketing strategy, 3-year picture. This is a living document. We update it all the time. And we're not going to go through it in detail, but this is just kind of who we are, right? We're mission-minded. If you've been here for anything more than a couple of weeks, you understand we care about outreach. We don't just talking about the gospel. We preach the gospel. We share it. We're hospitable, right? We understand that coming to a church for the first time is kind of a big deal, so we try to be hospitable to people. We try to be supportive, right? There's a lot of people going through a lot of different things. So nowadays, especially when the world is so crazy, it means a lot to have Christian community. What's our focus? Bringing peace through God's promises to the people of Bluffton. And then kind of our niche, bringing certainty and comfort through God's promises in word and sacrament. That's a very Lutheran kind of outlook on what does it mean to be a church. There's a lot of good things that people can do, and there's a lot of good things that we do encourage people to do, to take part in different nonprofits. But as for what the purpose of the church itself is, what ministry hours go into, that's going to be worship and outreach in large part. That's what we have kind of decided as a church. This is what we're going to do. Now that empowers people to do all sorts of things. If you want to volunteer at Habitat for Humanity, if you want to give to this nonprofit or that, that's great. As an organization, as a church, what we're about preaching the gospel, right? Preach the good news. In other words, this also helps us understand what we're not about, right? So we're not about trying to let me figure out how to say this. We're not a political organization, right? We care about preaching the gospel, right? And we don't exist to make people a little bit more moral, right? We're about preaching the gospel, about preaching a savior, not about making people into their own messiahs. That's probably it for the first page. You can see a 3-year picture. These are just some things that we threw out. You know, what might it look like if we purchase land? What might it look like if we have a building? A lot of these timelines are still up in the air. We're trying to figure them out as best we can. What might it look like if we had more in-reach events, right? So traditionally, we would have services on a Thursday Ascension, but that's kind of gone away. Maybe we'll have a pig roast. Maybe we'll have an in-reach event, right? Christian community, again, it means a lot. So maybe we'll have something else that we do, a small devotion and then something like that. So more in-reach, more outreach. This is just kind of where we're looking in the next 3 years. And then on the back page, you see a 1-year plan, right? Host 2 fellowship events, refining a yearly evangelism calendar. That's where we want to be in 1 year. We go off of a fiscal year, so July to June each year. That's a 1-year thing. Rocks are just quarterly things. So what's Pastor working on right now? If you know, I know there's the old joke, you know, Pastor only works 1 day, 1 day a week. But we are trying, and not just me, but a number of people, right? Leadership included. These are just some of the things we try to get done on a quarterly basis, so we're making progress. We're not just spinning our wheels. And then finally, there's an issues list. What are the things that people are talking about? What are the things that we have on our radar, right? You see a number of them there, right? Sanctuary capacity, that's the obvious one. Limited land to buy in Bluffton, second floor location. Negative perception of denominations in Bluffton. People get a little bit squirrely. They're like, well, why would I want Luther? I just want basic Christianity. Okay, well, this is what we believe basic Christianity is. So any number of things, right? No live music, need for additional fellowship opportunities, low Sunday school attendance. We're slowly bringing that back up, but anything, reactions to that, this is essentially where we're going. In other words, rather than having oxen pull in 10 different directions, this is a document that says this is where we're heading as a church. Questions on that, comments on that, reactions to that? So if someone does have a wonderful idea, we may say there's actually connect groups for that. We'll get connect groups started. Small groups, they could be Bible study groups, they could be social groups, they could be service groups. But if you have a wonderful idea for an event or something, I may say that's a wonderful idea. We're going to have it do, either you can volunteer to do it or we'll have a connect group. But as for what we're focused on in leadership, worship and outreach, worship and outreach, worship and outreach. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not going to show up to your hospital bed. I will do that. We'll talk about that. But if we're talking about programs that we're going to add, we're trying to be lean and mean. We're going to be as Spartan as we can so that we can keep on doing what we do a few things well. Questions, comments, reactions?
I'd comment that the number 7 down there, low Sunday school attendance, has improved a lot lately.
Excellent. So probably we could scratch that one off next meeting. And if I don't, you have to remind me of that. Yeah. But I think we have.
It used to be like 7, 8,
Yeah.
9. Now it's more 15 to 20. I think that's great.
I think so too. And so yet another reason to thank the Lord for these blessings.
Does that mean adult Sunday school or kids? I guess I was thinking kids only, but
I kind of have both in mind, but I think kids, there's probably still more room for improvement. We used to be kind of 1 most weeks, and now we're getting up to 4. And I think as we kind of get up a little bit more and more, it encourages more kids to come in. So
Yeah, I was talking specifically about the Bible study, but I think the Sunday school also is growing, starting to grow, which is
I
good.
think that's just a good distinction because my mind just went to kids. So yeah, I think so.
let's see. Anything else? Anything else that other leadership folks would add? Again, this is just kind of saying, this is where we're going. So if we say, hey, I want to take a detour and go to Hardee's, I'll say, no, we got to go here. That's not to say that the idea isn't good, but this is just what we in leadership have determined. And there's always a chance to add more issues. Hey, the roof is perpetually leaking. Okay, that goes in the issues list. Hey, we really ought to get this done for worship and outreach. Great, put it on the rocks.
What is your threshold for 2 services? Is it 75 or you're not? Yeah.
For splitting into 2 services, we're probably at about that point. Part of me is a little bit reluctant to do that because there's kind of an energy you have when the room is full, and it kind of gives this sense of momentum. I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll probably figure out if we have to split up, the next month or so.
I think a lot of that's going to depend too where we find that we're going to move our sanctuary, because that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Rich. I was going to offer the same thing. It kind of depends on, or what's going to help inform that decision, and it's ultimately pastor's decision, is where we are with our next space, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I will say this, this is just a personal thing, everybody has their own view. I agree with the pastor in some respects. I'd rather have the challenge of saying to our ushers, show people where they can sit, because we're crowded, rather than splitting into 2 services and we got 25 people in each and it seems empty, because then people come in and they're like, yeah, whatever. I do think there's some sort of sense of urgency that's created.
Yeah.
But that, reasonable people can differ on that. It's just a perspective.
Yeah, and I think we will, right? The minute that we don't have enough, okay, obviously something's got to change. There is something cool about having everybody, young and, because generally, so I grew up always going early, I'm kind of a morning bird. And I think in general, if you have kids, you want to come later because it takes a little while to put the shoes on and to get them wrangled into the car. Rather than splitting up into, well, this is generally where more of the single people or the older people go the first. And then, you have the young folks go to the second. It's kind of nice to have everybody in one. But I think we probably will in the next month or 2. Lord willing. That would be a great challenge, and I would love to. But good question.
If you're in your money, you got to do 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. If you're only working 1 day a week, at least you got to preach twice, man. It's getting away with something, right?
The other thing to keep in mind is if we do that, somebody's got to be designated the person to come to both services to see if he says the same thing both times.
It's streamed online. You can listen on the way home.
You young people, yeah. Second service is the fire and brimstone one, yeah. First one is where I just flattered. The other thing too is it would double the amount of volunteers.
Yeah.
Immediately. So now we have to have 2 AV people. We have to have twice the ushers, twice the. So that's kind of the other thing. I think right now you should see in your service folder there's a little half sheet where you can say, and again, 5 is where you want to do it, and 1 is where you don't want to do it. So do remember that. Opportunities to serve. We're kind of making a fresh push. We make annually. Maybe we should make it semi-annually. A fresh push for, are you sick of doing something? Have I assigned you to be usher? And you're thinking, just let me sit with my family. You could put that at the bottom of it. And we'll take you off, we'll let you serve in a new way. We don't want to burn you out. But we should be getting more volunteers. I think it's more feasible to split up into 2 services soon. Rich?
One other thing, I'd like to add the issues list for me, because I'm old and my memory's not that great sometimes.
Sure.
I think you have somebody working on it, but it would be nice at some point to get a directory with everybody's name in it and
Yes.
contact info if they want it in. Down the road, it could even put a family picture in there. I mean, I think that would be, I brought this up several
Yeah.
times. and
I think I actually read your mind this past week because out on the gathering space table, there's actually a form where we'll be asking people after church, members, fill that out, and if there's anything especially if there's anything that's updated, fill that out. I probably have all of your information on Planning
I think
Center.
there's an alternative. If we can't get that done, maybe we could all wear name tags.
Something like that, yeah.
Just
Esther,
statement.
yeah. But we will have that done. The Dear Kinderans are working on that. Their request is that just fill that out. It should take a couple of minutes, but put it in the black tray along with the opportunities to serve thing. That will make sure we have updated information for everybody. And that should be out, I would imagine, within a month. So
It's that. I guess the question is like, you have it.
Mhm.
You're gonna update it for you to have it. How to?
we'll make a booklet for it, like a concrete booklet, and then we'll have them out, in the Narthex or wherever.
You might want to explore like an app.
Already
Like
ahead
our
of you there.
last church used an app, Breeze, where you can send people emails and be like, oh, I need to get a hold of that one person. I know what they look like.
Church life.
Yeah.
So we actually have that, but now we're doing a concrete one, in case people don't like technology. But I can send you a link to that. It's Church Center. You'll have everybody's information so long as they volunteer it. If people don't want you to know their birthday or whatever, it won't be on there. But yeah, we do have an app for it. Other thoughts so far? Good stuff. Moving on. Let's talk about expectations of pastor, and I'll talk about expectations of you. But first of all, let's talk about expectations of pastor. It's good to kind of preempt a lot of these things. So, what can you expect? Here's a trustworthy saying: whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. Now, the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him. And he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. I know the font's a little small, sorry. I'm glad that that's not one of the requirements to be an overseer. If anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? He must not be a recent convert, or he may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. He must also have a good reputation with outsiders so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap. What are some things that you can expect of me as your pastor?
Evelyn will never not listen to you. It says it right there. You're out.
What did he say?
I'm going to have to get my exegetical crowbar out and change some of these words around, right?
Why not? Boss?
There is something to that, right? So if I have children that are still under my roof and they're going absolutely bananas, getting locked up, getting in trouble, that raises some serious doubts about my ability to be an overseer of the church, right? Just like it says, if he can't take care of his church, if he can't take care of his family, how is he going to take care of God's church? What else can you expect of me?
We can expect you to preach the word faithfully
Sure.
and administer the sacraments.
Administration of word and sacraments. That's perfect. What else?
All of the above. I mean, how do you pick out one?
Yeah, right. Any of them, right? You could do a sermon on each of them, right? What does it mean to be gentle but not violent? Does that mean I'm not kind of standing up here as a little dictator? Sure. It means a lot of things, right? Not quarrelsome, right? I don't like to pick fights. Not a lover of money. These are just some things you can expect. How about this? Is anyone among you sick? This is from James 5. Let them call the elders of the church to pray over them and anoint them with oil in the name of the Lord. No, I'm not sure you should expect me to come with my chrisming oil, but there is a sense in that that was very likely used for medicinal purposes. So if you want oil, I can bring some olive oil. Otherwise, what I'm saying there is, what can you expect? You can expect me to visit you if you're sick, right? If you're in the hospital, the expectation is I'll visit you, right? If you, and this happened, right? We had a member who was shot in the face on Thanksgiving morning. I'll be there, right? If you need me, if there's an emergency, I'll be there, all right? If you don't have my cell number, it's right there. Take it down right now. Put it in your phone. I'm slowly phasing out the pastor at May River Lutheran. That'll be in the e-news coming up. But Yankee Eric P. is the best way to reach me. You can always reach me. I may be off the grid sometimes, but I'll let you know if I am. Otherwise, 24/7. For emergencies, you can call me.
Just gonna take a picture of it.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back. This does require one thing. I am willing to do a lot of things, but I cannot read minds. So if you are in the hospital, I do not check the manifests regularly. You need to tell me if you're in the hospital. If you don't tell me if you're in the hospital, you can't expect me to hear it through the grapevine. So I do need to know it. Good. How about this? In those days when the number of disciples was increasing, the Hellenistic or Greek Jews among them complained about the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. This is in Acts. This is the early church. So the church is trying to feed people and trying to preach the Gospels. Verse 2, so the 12 gathered all the disciples together and said, it would not be right for us to neglect the ministry of the Word of God in order to wait on tables. Brothers and sisters, choose men from among you who are known to be full of the Spirit and wisdom. We will turn this responsibility over to them, and we'll give our attention to prayer and the ministry of the Word. Daryl, you kind of got at this earlier, but what can you expect from me? What do you suppose I put Acts 6 up there? The situation is there's too much work to be done, and the apostles have said, all right, it's probably not a good use of our time to be, and it's not derogatory that they're saying, wow, waiting on tables is beneath me. But they understand that there is priority to a certain element of ministry. What can you expect from me?
You're gonna delegate work.
Yes, and sometimes I need to be better at that. But my focus will be on the ministry of Word and Sacrament. Anything else to that point? Thoughts? How about this? This is from Jesus the night that he is betrayed. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And important to note, I didn't put this in, but Jesus also asks his disciples, love one another in this way. What can you expect from your leaders, according to this, would you say? Yeah, servant leaders, right? What does that mean to be a servant leader? Thoughts? Yeah, lead by example, right? Patton's illustration was he took a piece of cooked spaghetti and then he tried to move the spaghetti by pushing it from the back. Can you imagine that? Like a wet piece of spaghetti that you try to push. It's not going to work. You have to pull it from the front if you want it to go in a straight line. Same idea, right? So we have people that clean, we have people that do all sorts of stuff, but don't be surprised if I insist on taking a bag of trash out, right? If we do tables for like a Lenten dinner, don't be surprised if at some point I or another leader, we get up, we start picking them up. This is something we try to be intentional about. You can ask someone to do it, but the way that leadership is structured in the New Testament, the way that Jesus models it, is it's not a pyramid, right? It's not pastor at the top and all the peons down below. It's kind of an inverted triangle, right? At the very bottom is leadership, right? All of the nasty things can at some point kind of filter down to them, right? Jesus is not afraid to get his hands dirty. And so it's about service. It's not about all sorts of perks and privileges that we get. Questions on that? Comments on that? And also, don't be surprised if I ask you to do the same, right? Don't be surprised if I say, hey, we have 2 bags of trash. Can you take this one out? Hey, we're all picking up tables right now. Can you wipe some off? What would you add? What are their expectations? Thoughts on this? This is a kind of a living presentation that I give once in a while. What else would you add?
Would you also, the thing that came to my mind was like sharing anything that's happening with the Wells Synod back.
Oh, sure.
Or if you go to conferences, like the church I grew up going to, we always had like those Wells Connect videos. And I recently saw like, obviously the church would have to subscribe.
Yep.
But that got me thinking that could be something that you would share as like news that you're hearing from the Synod.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. What else?
Can't you get those Wells? I get those Wells
Yeah.
videos on.
They're on Vimeo. Yeah, they're free. Yeah. Sometimes it's just getting it queued up, and it's easy for me to forget. But yeah, we should get back in the habit of doing those. What else? All right, moving on. All right, expectations of members. So what does it mean to be a member? How about this? Let us consider how we may spur one another. This is Hebrews 10, not Acts 10. How we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. What's an expectation that, and not necessarily that I would have, but you see up there, we/pastor/God can expect, right? What can we expect from each other, right? What do your fellow church members expect of you? Most importantly, what does God expect of you? What does God say? This is kind of how I would like people to be part of God's community.
Just active fellowship.
Yeah.
Weekly if you can.
Yeah, to be first of all to be present, right? It seems like a very basic thing, but you don't know how much it means just to be present, right? Just to have another voice saying the Apostles' Creed next to you, just to have another person singing a hymn next to you. Worship is, in a sense, it's kind of a mutual thing. We're all kind of singing to each other the songs. So just showing up and then actually being engaged, right? Getting the courage up, the initiative up to say, I know I'm here, I dragged myself out of bed. Let me also talk to this person I don't know. What else? What are other expectations?
Prayer for each other in the church.
Yeah, prayer for each other. Encouragement for each other. Just a little bit of encouragement can go a long way. It's just a little handwritten note, just a little something, just, hey, I noticed that you have a great singing voice, or hey, that was a really interesting comment. Thanks for bringing that up. that can mean a whole lot to somebody. I heard Sundays described it as one way of kind of, this is where our whole life gets put back together on Sunday mornings. This is where we hear gospel promises. This is where God kind of pulls it all back together for us. Anything else? Now, I won't, I'll say this, it's good if we can come to Bible study. I won't be legalistic about it. I won't say, well, 3.5 hours every week. And if you don't, you're not a member in good standing. But I would encourage it, right? Let's get away from talking about what's the minimum, right? It's always kind of where we gravitate towards, well, Pastor, what's the minimum? What's the minimum? What can we do? What could we be? Is maybe a better, Randy.
Keeping that sense of urgency that's in the verse. It's actually there, so that not specifically Bible study, but if you see somebody gone, that urgency, we don't know when the day is coming. So don't forget about them. That something may happen.
Exactly, right? And what's this growing sense of urgency about? It's as you see the day approaching, as you see the world kind of rotting, as you see us speeding towards Judgment Day. I don't know about you, maybe there's a slight inclination to be a doomsday prepper, or to lament, or to complain, or to take to Twitter or something. What is God's recommendation for as we see the world getting worse and worse? Go to church, encourage one another, build each other up. Let's not just sink into cynicism and pessimism, but let's encourage one another. Let's build up the family of God, right? Let's do something positive. Anything else? Also, this is, I'm putting everybody on notice. If I don't see you for 3 months, I'll probably be showing up at your doorstep and just saying, are you okay? Is everything all right? Did you fall off the face of the earth? I don't mean to be legalistic, but we miss you, and we'd love to see you. And if there's something that's getting between you and God's Word, let's talk about that. How about this? Remember that now we're talking about stewardship. We're talking about how do we handle the money that God has entrusted to us, the possessions that God has entrusted to us. Paul is writing to the Corinthian congregation, and he says, remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion. What does that mean? If someone gives reluctantly or under compulsion?
Guilty.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to miss this. If that's how you feel about the check, God doesn't need it. God will accomplish His purposes without whatever money it is. So if it's reluctant, if you feel like you're giving it because someone is looking over your shoulder and trying to read through the envelope and see what don't give it, okay? Not reluctantly, for God loves a cheerful giver, right? God loves a cheerful giver, and He also doesn't need an anxious giver, right? Doesn't need it. The Lord is going to find a way. For 2,000 years, He has found a way, and He will. God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. Notice all of the alls right there. And in Greek, even that every is the same word. What do you notice there? What can God expect from me, from you?
Just honesty in the way you approach giving. It's not just a ritual. It's not just a duty.
This isn't something that we look up on a board and say, well, X percentage, all right, whatever.
Yeah. And I notice it says God is able to bless you. I know a lot of modern pastors would say He will bless you. You will be blessed if you give more money. The more you give, you'll be blessed even greater. A lot of them do that. It says God is able to. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but He's able to if He.
Right, and then the other thing is, how do you define blessing? That'll be pretty much what our sermon is going to be on. A lot of times we can sink into, well, we don't really talk, we don't like to talk about money. So instead, Christians, we don't say money, we say blessings, right?
Yeah.
Blessings can mean something a whole lot more than just money, right?
Uh-huh. So many have turned, like the prosperity gospel, has turned blessing into money. It's all money.
And at first it sounds good, right? Oh, blessings, give me some of them blessings.
Yeah.
But then you think, boy, how narrow does that make this idea of blessing, right? If inflation can chew it away, if someone can steal it, how great of a blessing really is that?
That's mammon. It turns into mammon at that point.
Yeah, it turns into the idolatry of money, and God is merely the butler to facilitate that.
So, He will bless you, but it's His choice. It's not like I'm going to put $1,000 in here and I'm going to get that promotion now or whatever.
And
how he blesses.
Yeah, don't view this as some kind of
Genie lamp.
a genie lamp or a once in a lifetime investment opportunity where you put in, we're going to guarantee you're going to get 7% returns.
I mean, they actually,
Um,
I've seen them break it down like that, like percentages.
Right,
You know,
right.
I've seen them do that.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they do that.
Anything else here?
I'm gonna need that last check back then.
You know, I thought you said something in the offering blurb about, you know, a 7% return. We're gonna,
Well, it's sowing. They always say, you know, I hear many pastors say, well, how much you sow, you will, reap. And
Right.
they use that financially.
Right,
For
right.
tithing. That's the big thing.
I think it could be true in a way that's not that way. In other words,
Oh, yeah.
maybe if the blessing that I get is not, ba-boom, lightning strikes the bank and I get $100 million. Maybe it's the blessing that God gives me is I'm just not as attached to money.
Exactly.
I'm
yeah.
just not as anxious about it when I give it.
The peace of mind.
It's the craziest thing. Normally we think that if we're addicted to something, what we need is we need more of it. But just the opposite, right? If I'm addicted to money, what's one of the things that can help me not be addicted to it? It's giving it away. That can help me have a better relationship rather than, well, what I really need is $2,000 more. That's not going to do it for you, believe me. Or whatever it is, right? What I need to be happy is a fourth glass of wine. What I need to be happy is just one more promotion, right? Instead, often it's the other way around. What else do you see here? Shirley.
Well, to that point, all that you need, we think we need.
Right. Evelyn is in a phase where I need this. I need applesauce. It's not I want applesauce. I need applesauce. I need juice. I need to open this. Good to keep needs and wants separate. Other thoughts, Randy?
Sometimes it isn't money or anything. Maybe life is a little less rocky because
Yeah.
God is your focus. So all those rocks can cloud all your
Sure.
stuff, and I don't know. Just a thought.
It's good. It's good to remember that we don't run so far away from prosperity gospel that we say that God is not able to bless us at all, right? But rather, hey, He's promised this. Now, it's probably not going to be. He's not going to cater to our materialist culture and say, all right, well, here's a new Lambo, but their blessings nonetheless. Other thoughts on this? Otherwise, we have another verse. Also, I would note this. Is this a financial issue or a spiritual issue? Yeah, yes, right. This is spiritual. We would. I don't want to put my sins on other people, but I can very easily, in my mind, split finances off from spirituality. Right? Lord Jesus, you can have all of me, but let's just put this money to the side. Right? Let's just put these habits to the side. Let's put my woodworking habit to the side. I like to spend money on that. Let's put this to the side. I like to spend money on that. And then you can have all of Luther said the last part of someone to be converted is the wallet, right? And how easy it is to say, well, this is a financial issue. This is nobody's business. But Paul says, look, this is. He kind of speaks of it in a way that kind of messes with us a little bit. Another point I would say is you saw how much last week. I think it was together with housing, it was 58,000 I get paid. If you give a check for $1 million next week, my salary will not change at all. It is on a schedule. I am not going to be preaching so that I get a kickback or something at Christmas. What I get, I get. So you could give $1 billion. I'll still be driving the Ford Escape. I'm not going to be driving a sports car the next Sunday. That's what it is. So you don't have to worry about
Thanks
that.
for saying that, Pastor. Everybody write those checks.
Yeah, so the fun for the sports car is a different one. I'm kidding.
She'll take donations.
Yeah, the Aruba slush fund is another one. You can how about this? As it is written, they have freely scattered their gifts to the poor. So this is just Paul continuing in 2 Corinthians 9. Their righteousness endures forever. That's a cool phrase, right? Their righteousness endures forever. What they do, it's not like buying a new pair of pants where they wear out after a couple of years. Their righteousness, what they do, that endures forever. So even the couple of pennies or whatever, the widow's mites that are put into the offering plate, the Lord says that has ramifications that endure into eternity. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed, and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. You will then be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, and through us your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. What do you notice there? What does that make you think of? What comments, thoughts, reactions, questions? I got this illustration from a seminary professor. If you can imagine some of those Amazon warehouses, is there one around here, an Amazon warehouse, one of those really big ones? It's just massive, it sprawls. All sorts of parking out in front. Now imagine you're a manager of that Amazon warehouse, and it's Black Friday, and people are just clearing it out. Let's say 25% of everything that is in the Amazon warehouse, 25% of it is bought out. Do you panic? Do you say, what in the world? Everything is getting cleared out. Or do you say, no, this is exactly what we have these things here for? You'd be the latter, right? Their job is to merely be kind of a clearinghouse. It's there for a little bit. It's not really theirs, but eventually the purpose is that it gets dispersed out, that other people eventually get it. That's a lot like stewardship, right? Here it says, you will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion, right? In other words, the Amazon warehouse doesn't say, well, we got to keep all this stuff to ourselves. We're never going to send it out. Likewise, the Christian doesn't say, well, I got to keep everything that I have. I'm never going to share it. I'm never going to give it away. In fact, our purpose is to be generous on every occasion, right? I thought of the same thing. I went to the used bookstore, and the stuff is like $2. So I got a whole stack of them, and I kind of felt bad because you're taking all these books away, but then you realize, well, no, that's actually the purpose. She wants to move all of that. And as Christians, we want to move our blessings, right? The idea is not just that we get more and more and more and more. The idea is that it's used at some point. Thoughts on that? Reactions, comments, questions, pushback?
Not pushback, but like, maybe it's our society, but I feel like that's another role of the church, is to be, if somebody is offering generously, like you said, don't feel guilty. Like, maybe it's your opportunity to take those books now, and then you'll give them to someone else in the future. And so I feel like sometimes just it's a good reminder for us, like if someone is offering their home, whatever it could be, it's like, say yes to those opportunities. And then you can, it's not a tit for tat, it's not a payback, but you know, just, it takes two, I guess.
Right.
Because that person may be putting themselves out there.
Yeah. So if someone does volunteer, if they do offer something, take them at their word. This is a privilege. And if we see it as a privilege to do these things, then we would say, yeah, let me take you up on that. Like you said, not a tit for tat, right? I'm not indebting myself to another Christian if I let them help me. Anything else?
To kind of piggyback off of that too, I feel like generosity sows generosity in the sense of once you've done that thing and gone out of your way to offer something that you might be uncomfortable, like whatever, stay at my house or whatever it is, if somebody actually takes you up on it, it becomes easier to be generous in the future. You know, like if you see how your generosity is helping others, I feel like it makes you more conscious and more aware and more willing to do it more in the future. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. You open up your house and you realize that nobody stole, all the paintings off the wall or whatever, or you gave a little bit more, an extra % this week, and the sky didn't come crashing down. In fact, it kind of felt good that you were able to say, this is what the Lord means to me. Another seminary professor said this. You will never regret the money that you give to God. I've regretted a lot of purchases, right? I would guess if you're like me, there's a lot of purchases that you thought, why did I buy that? Or some weird tacky piece of clothing. I've never thought, boy, I gotta get that check back. I really gotta get that, whatever it was. These are things, again, righteousness endures forever. Any other thoughts on that? So moving on, and again, Paul kind of messes with us with this. I'm not commanding you, right? Paul's not saying, all right, you got to do this or else. He says, but I want to test the sincerity of your love. Does that kind of make you a little bit uncomfortable? Test the sincerity of my love. Part of me would like to say, well, no, my love is over here, my money is over here. Don't you dare try to equate them. Paul says, I want to test the sincerity of your love by comparing it with the earnestness of others. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you through his poverty might become rich. Going off of Mike's point earlier, we don't give so we can get rich. We already are rich, therefore we give, right? Is it too much to say, think of what the gospel means to you? What does it mean to have the gospel? If you were to translate that into a dollar amount, it's not going to be the same for everybody, but in keeping with income, what does this mean to me? What does ministry mean to me? Thoughts on that? Pushback on that? Again, Paul does kind of mess with us a little bit. Test the sincerity of your love. I'd like to say I'm sincere, just leave my money out of it. It's a spiritual issue. Was it a little bit earlier? I think we'll hit it again later. There's a little bit more stewardship. And it just talks about on the first day of each week. So have it regular. Think about it. Give it some thought. Talk to your spouse about giving. We won't. That'll be pretty much it that we're talking about stewardship for the time being. Matthew 18. If your brother or sister sins, and some texts have against you, I think either way, this is something that you want to do if they sin, right? So if you see them knocking over a liquor store, well, it's none of my business. I didn't own the liquor store. If you see them sin, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. Now, this doesn't mean we're all going to be sin detectives, right? I'm going to look on Bob's Facebook and see what he's been up to, and then go confront him. We're not sin detectives, right? There's enough sin out there where we don't have to go looking for it. Go and point out their fault just between the two of you. Why is it just between the two of you?
That's God's command.
That's God's command, right? And how does that show love for the person who is in the wrong?
You respect them enough to give them the opportunity to repent or make a decision, and you're not forcing them. You respect them enough to do it themselves.
Yeah, you're showing them respect. You're showing them care. You're not
changing their character or how other people view them necessarily.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for me to say, "Hey, Mike, you know what Rich did?" It's hard to talk to Rich, if Rich sinned against me, but it's a lot easier to go around him, right? So this shows care of the person who's sinning, right? It shows that you respect their reputation. Also, who is not involved so far? I'm kind of asking you to read my mind, but who is not involved so far? Me, right? So if someone's got beef with someone, you do not talk to me. What would happen if everybody talked to me when someone sinned against them, and I was the guy who kind of clubbed them?
You'd have to work more than 1 day a week.
You'd actually have to earn your money faster. What else? What else would happen? We all just tattle on each other. What else?
Well, you'd be like the judge,
The
or
tyrant,
you'd be, I feel like our human nature would start seeing the pastor as that.
Yeah, I'm the bad guy now. Whenever you call me, Billy didn't like how you cut the banana bread. That's not what you want to hear from your pastor, right? My job is to administer word and sacrament. Now, at a certain point, I do get involved, but not right away, right? What else? Andy?
May affect church attendance.
That's right. I think it creates just an environment of suspicion. If everybody is always wondering, I don't know if this guy has a problem against me, how much healthier is it if you just know that the people around you, they're just going to talk to you. They're just going to say, hey, I've been feeling weird about this. Can we just clear this up real quick? You feel so much better afterwards. Verse 16, but if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or tax collector. What does it mean, pagan or tax collector? That we give them the dirty eyeball all the time? No, right. It just means that they're not part of that same Christian community. How does Jesus treat the pagans and the tax collectors? Welcoming, loving, but there's certainly a different kind of engagement that he has with them. What else do you notice there? What else can God expect of us? Can we expect of each other? What can I expect of you?
Well, everybody's open with each other.
Yeah.
You got face to face, and then 2 or 3 witnesses, and then pastor.
If someone comes to me and they say, such and such happened, you should be able to expect me to say, and I haven't been perfect about this, you should be able to expect me to say, that sounds like a serious problem. How about we all get together and talk about it? Mm-hmm. If it falls below a certain threshold, it's just not a big deal. If it gets above a certain threshold, we're going to talk about it. We're not going to let it fester. The other thing too is I cannot operate on hearsay, right? So if Mike tells me that he saw 8 cans of beer on Billy's porch and they weren't there that night, but he saw them this morning, I can't really in good conscience go to Billy and say, look, here's what I heard you say. Just as a matter of practicality, I won't work on that. Now, if we talk about sexual abuse, childhood sexual abuse, we do have policies against that. And that's the kind of thing where, okay, yeah, now we gotta, first of all, call the cops, and then we'll figure it out. But, again, I can't really operate on hearsay. Does that make sense? Anything else there? First Peter 4, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. What can I expect of you? Or what should you expect me to expect of you? If you got gifts, there's a good chance I'm going to ask you to use them. Hopefully, right? We have those little opportunity to serve thing. If you have like some secret leadership experience or something that I don't know about, put it down there. Don't be ashamed of it. We'll let some of the coordinators be able to say like, hey, yeah, like, let's put you on this committee. Hey, we need more bodies. We need more eyes looking at this. Acts 20:35, by this kind of hard work, we must help the weak, remembering the words of the Lord Jesus himself. It is more blessed to give than to receive. What else? Expectations. Thoughts? Generosity, willingness to share, willingness to give time. One of the things that we want to be intentional about is just to be generous, right? So if there's a chance, right, generously a fund has been established where when I meet a prospect, I can take them out for coffee or lunch. In other words, we want to be generous all the way through. Trust that God is going to guide us in all of this. From the very first all the way through. If someone wants to take a whole donut, I'm not necessarily going to slap their hand away and put it into quarters. We are going to understand that there's a cost to doing business, and especially there's a cost to living as a Christian, right? To be generous. Thoughts on that? Questions? Randy?
As a faithful steward, so our stewardship committee in Nebraska, where I was from, they defined that as time, talents, and treasure.
Sure.
So it could be just a simple thing of offering some time to somebody or whatever.
Sure. And the last thing I want to do is, if you're not in, if you're not in some stellar financial position, the last thing I want to do is twist a knife and make you feel guilty. But rather, it's just to understand that everything we have, right, even our time, right? How often don't I think this is my time, this is my own personal time? God says, no, all of it is mine. And here, now you're a steward, right? So you're a manager of it. How do you want to use that, knowing everything that I've done for you? And it's not demanding, every single minute has to be spent nose in the Bible or, taking a toothbrush to the floorboards of church. But is there a way that we can kind of give back? Pads for congregational communication, congregational email, bulletin, planning center. You may get this. We use Planning Center. That's how we do the volunteer things. Some of you are very familiar with that. This is just how we try to keep organized. We also put it in the bulletin. Serving you, we have all of our leadership here this morning. Eric Christofferson is our president. Rich Perry is the treasurer. Dan Wiltsey is the secretary. If you have any concerns, you can also bring it up with them. Maybe something, for whatever reason, and I won't take it personally. If you want to address it with them, if I'm running around before worship with like a chicken with my head cut off, you can always talk to them. Financial secretary is Debbie Collins. Each of those serve us faithfully. Also serving us is the board for home mission. So how do we get the money that we get? How can we sustain this? Well, our national church body, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod, or the WELS, they have a board for home missions, which subsidizes us. So anywhere from 1/3 to 1/2 of what we use for our funds, it comes from them. They're generous enough to start churches and give us a lot more funding than a lot of other church bodies give their churches. You also hear me say DMB or BHM. DMB, that's a more localized district mission board, goes from South Carolina down to Florida, all the way to Louisiana. So that's the district mission board. We work with them. Maybe I'll pause here and just see if you have any other questions, just in general. General about welfare of the church at large, how to live in community, stewardship, anything. Diane.
I just want to say thank you for sending out the Friday reminders.
Sure. And thank Hans and Jane der Kinderen as well. They have been ruthlessly organized, whereas I am very kind of spotty in my organization. So when you see them, say thanks for doing what you do. They're very faithful folks. Outreach, here's just a couple of the things that we've tried. We've tried a lot more than this, but we're always looking for different tactics. We may not always go with everything, but we're more often than not willing to try different things. We found that some stuff works better than others. That's just a little bit of what we do. Anybody know the two things that are the most effective here? Talked about them before. Anyone have a guess?
Friendship evangelism.
Friendship evangelism in Google. Yeah, I've heard both of them, right? Number one is Google. So where do you go if you want to find a burrito? Do you go to the yellow pages? Do you know? All right, burrito places. No, you don't, right? You just go to Google. Best Mexican, and then you look at the top 3 or 4. If it's past that, like 90% of all Google searches don't go to the second page, right? You just go with whatever's on top, right? So we try to be where the people are, and they're on the internet. We're redesigning the website now. Should be done in the next week or so. And then friendship evangelism. Something like 3/4 of people said that they would, of unchurched people, said that they would be willing to seriously consider an invite to church. That's maybe a lot higher than we would think, right? You think of unchurched people, and I don't know. There's a lot of people that are very willing to go to church, and so before Easter we'll have postcards out there. If you know someone, you can give them a postcard. That's honestly, it's the cheapest, and it's also one of the most effective, friendship evangelism. We talked about stewardship. Sorry. On the first day of each week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money and keep it with his income. In other words, make it regular. Whoever sows sparingly, we also talked about that. What does God promise? Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. There's the kind of, you've probably seen it before, it's been like meme-ified, where there's the glass jar, and there's the rocks and sand and the pebbles. If you put the sand in first, and then the tiny rocks and the big rocks, does it fit? No, it doesn't, right? There's all sorts of air gaps above. If you put the big rocks in first, and then the tiny rocks, and then the sand, it all fits in, right? So it's priorities. If we have God first, then guess what, Eric? Eventually I'm going to be able to do my woodworking, right? Eventually I'll be able to cram it in here. God will have enough money for me to be able to fill up my gas tank, right? If I let all those other things go in first, and then I give God leftovers, well, not really the way it ought to be. National Church Body, founded about 150 years ago, Johannes Mühlhäuser, back in Wisconsin. Why do we call ourselves Wisconsin? We didn't just throw darts at a dartboard. This is where it started. German immigrants. Very first WELS Church, it's in Granville, Wisconsin. If you want to know more, wells.net. If it helps, this is how our church body is structured. You have a president, we have a conference of presidents, we have a district president. Would it be helpful if I put this whole presentation online? If it would be, some people like to have this picture just to figure out how things work. We could do that. And then finally, just a couple of last acronyms. If you're wondering, boy, I wish there were some way that we could support young people who are looking to become pastors and teachers in our church body. Boy, do I have the thing for you. This is where I went to high school, Luther Prep School. It's in Wisconsin. This is specifically designed to, it doesn't only train people who are going to be pastors or teachers, but it gives them a good foundation, encourages them to become pastors or teachers. Luther Prep School, there's Michigan Lutheran Seminary. This is where Dan went. Prepares them for a lifetime of service, either in the ministry or just as a lay person. Martin Luther College, that's where we train all of our pastors and teachers. If you want to be a pastor, you get 4 years of biblical languages. If you want to be a teacher, you get some real high-grade education. And in fact, the Hahnemans had actually served at Martin Luther College. So they are very familiar with it. If you have all sorts of questions about Synod education, they're the ones to go to. And Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary, we have a 4-year seminary as well. So we really try to make sure that we get top-notch education for our pastors and teachers. And again, out of every $1 that you put into the offering plate, 10 cents of that goes to our national church body. And so if you've ever wondered, like, boy, wouldn't it be great to dig wells for water in India? Wouldn't it be great to be able to preach the gospel in Africa? Wouldn't it be great to support young people as they, so they don't have so much student debt? 10% of every $1 that you give, it goes to all of those things. That's all I have. Any last questions? Otherwise, we've gone over time. If you do, you can always talk to me, but hopefully that gave you a little bit of a knowledge of the secret handshakes that we have, gave you a little bit of knowledge about the acronyms, a whole lot of jargon, kind of what we're doing as a church, why we exist. Otherwise, we'll have worship in 12 minutes.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes, Shirley.
What is welcome bagger?
Welcome bagger. Yes. So, I probably should have changed that one. In your bulletins today, you're going to see little half sheets, opportunities to serve. Previously, before we ran into so many gated communities, what we would do is we would assign someone with a little bag of mugs, a pen, a handwritten note. Go and visit this new prospect. Drop by, say thanks so much for coming. Just give them this bag. That's all you have to do. I'll follow up with them after that. We're probably going to change that into like a guest kind of service, kind of, hey, thanks so much for coming. If you want to stop by this kiosk, we'll have someone with a welcome bag, someone who can greet you, get your information so pastor can follow up. We'll probably do something like that, but just somewhere to get lay people involved in reaching out to prospects is kind of the idea. All right, I've gone way over time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll have worship in a bit.
Pastor, I could sense you were looking directly at me when you talked about wanting to